So I've just finished watching a workshop on using agile and kind of scrum systems in personal productivity. And basically, the most important principle of agile workflows or all of these types of workflows is iteration. And I've already talked about this a little bit before, this concept of um, start small, iterate often, and it's through that process of making and repeating and failing over time that you ultimately create real progress as opposed to trying to create the ultimate final finished version of something all in one heavy leap. But this particular video actually really got me thinking about what it means to work in a kind of agile or iterative framework within creative writing, because in particular, the principle of like a scrum method is to always be delivering value as early as possible. So you want to create like some version of a product that is actually usable as quickly as possible so that you know if you're going to fail, you want to fail as early as possible, as often as possible, so that you can fix that rather than having to get all the way to the end of a project before it fails. And so it's a kind of a way of thinking that really shifts how you're approaching a project. So instead of like going in the traditional waterfall effect of like you create the design, then you create the thing, then you do the plan, then you go to the end. It's really about changing your thinking in terms of what is the most high value thing I can deliver right now for the least effort, and always thinking in those contexts. Um, so this was interesting to me from a creative writing standpoint. I think I'm very used to thinking of a novel or a story, something that's going to be, you have to go through the whole process of planning, writing, or just writing, then fixing, or like whatever, until you finally have a few drafts and finally you end up with a finished story. Um, and this kind of inspired me to maybe challenge that thinking a little bit. And I don't have any answers right now. I literally just watched this about an hour ago. But it started getting me curious, like what would it look like to like ship something deliverable early? Like what is like the minimum viable product when you're talking about a novel? What are the like small iterative packets that you can start to create that might test your novel idea, that might test your story idea, that might even test your interest in seeing this idea all the way through, and that might actually be a thing that you can actually put out into the world? I think that's the real test of whether you've created an actual shippable product, is if it's out there. Um, and in film, I think there's a kind of an analogy, like people often make short films as like a proof of concept before they make a feature film. I guess I can see a version of that in literature where you write a short story as a version of a novel, but that doesn't seem quite right to me somehow. I'm thinking there might be a more creative angle to come at it with. So we'll see. That's just the interesting thought I have today, and I'm curious. I'm going to experiment with it a little bit more and see where it takes me.